Hey family, this is one you absolutely cannot miss. Introducing the Diagnosing Whiteness Podcast with best-selling author and scholar Dante King and Reverend Dr. Philippe Matthews. Together, they expose the hidden truths of whiteness, anti-Blackness, and the systems that keep racial trauma alive. This isn't opinion, it's facts, history, law, and lived experience, brought straight to you with unfiltered honesty. Every episode is a wake-up call. Don't just hear about it later, be part of the conversation now. Click the link below and subscribe today.
This as a concept becomes ingrained legally and politically, but again, it is psycho, right? It's in the psyche. And so they're holding on to this, and then they take a stance because whiteness in European culture represented things that were pure, that had the highest value, God, angels, purity, and Blackness represented things that were vile, evil, and base. And so we have to understand these are psychopolitical conditions and psychopolitical groups, or not just concepts that have been ascribed to different groups for the purposes of locating infinite value within the group of white people, but also locating infinite valuelessness where Blacks or Blackness is concerned. And so if we go to President Andrew Johnson, he says if Blacks were given the right to vote, that would place every slave-footed, bandy-shanked, humpbacked, thick-lipped, flat-nosed, woolly-headed, ebony-colored Negro in the country upon an equality with the poor white man. He says, as long as I am president, this will be a country for white men and a government for white men. And so if we go to white American university,
terrorism that we're living in under the guise of the American flag and freedom.
Yeah, I do take somewhat of a different deviation, I guess, because I do believe that we as Black people who find ourselves in this predicament of only knowing ourselves through white institutions, through a culture that's been designed by white people, through their language, logic, that we were fine, nothing was wrong with us. But now there are many things that are even wrong, I believe, that we don't examine as Black people in terms of allegiance.
We're complicit and compliant at this point. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Because we've been forced into assimilation, and we've been forced to not just assimilate, but to have to survive in this place. And so we serve their institutions, we serve their ways of life, we ascribe to their educational models, and we ascribe value and worth to ourselves. And we play the same game as status that white men and white women do. Rich by peddling hate, by peddling hatred. And we must understand, like, when you're white, you don't have to follow the roadmap that your people say others have to follow. For example, Charlie Kirk was not, if I'm not mistaken, college educated. He's founded an organization that was founded on grievance and hatred, Turning Point USA. And he became, like I said, massively popular, massively rich by white American standards. He became successful. And now they're referring to him as some type of political figure, which he was not, who was assassinated. But again, by his own words, right? He said that in order to protect white people's First Amendment rights, for the most part, that essentially, that's what he was talking about. It was implied, but that essentially there would have to be some deaths, some gun deaths or deaths by gunnery. And so I find it interesting that the talking about what this man stood for and his words also garners tremendous backlash when all we're doing is quoting him, essentially, and discussing what his platform stood for and what he was about.